I'm so excited to be here. My name is Nicole Bennett, and I'll be doing the art bites for today for Hive Arts Collective. So today we'll be using techniques from something called Theater of the Oppressed, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means, and we'll be writing our own advice columns from the future. But they'll be with our own bodies. So that will be very interesting to get back into our bodies, as many of us sometimes live from the neck up in our jobs. So my name's Nicole. I am a researcher and artist and activist that works at the intersection of inclusive science communication, so helping STEM be a place of more belonging, and also in conversation with lots of the theories of social justice as well as applied theater. So where does Theater of the Oppressed come in this? So the why of my work is very much to decenter whiteness in science spaces and to work at an individual and at a systems level to dismantle white supremacy in STEM spaces. So the how of this comes about through a lot of these social justice theories, specifically thinking about the work of Paulo Freire and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Augusto Boal, who took the Pedagogy of the Oppressed and brought it to theater, Bell Hooks, who is in conversation with Paulo Freire and bringing that to critical pedagogy through her delicious writing. And so this ends up being kind of the how. Paulo Freire and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, highly recommend you check it out, is railing against this banking model of education. So this idea that you sit in the classroom and you are this empty vessel and I'll be the expert and I'll just fill you up with knowledge. That is inherently oppressive. And so he wants to switch and transform education into conscientizao. So this idea of consciousness raising and how do we value the lived experiences and have people come into our classrooms as whole people. So I will be bringing in a little bit of the work from Theater of the Oppressed, which is Augusto Boal's work, borrowing from Freire's work, and Boal uses theater, and all of Boal's descendants use theater as a means to create social and political change. So doing this sort of very embodied work, we can explore and analyze and hopefully ultimately transform our realities. So a big part of this, and a big part of what we'll be exploring today, is this idea of demechanization. So often we live from our necks up. I was raised as a scientist, so most of my life was very cognitive. So how do we get more embodied? How can we listen to our bodies again? So Freire talks about this idea of demechanization, and Boal does as well. So, and this is also part of the way that we've been colonized. If you look at Kenneth Jones and Tamat Akun's Characteristics of White Supremacy Culture, as well as the work of generative somatics, they always come with this invitation to come back to our bodies. So that's what we'll be doing today. So we'll be exploring something called image work from Theater of the Oppressed. So let's do a quick warm-up. I've done that thing where I kind of burst out talking, so I could use some breaths as well. So just take some breaths in your space. Come into relationship with your breathing. Notice how you are in relationship to gravity. So often, if you're like me and you work a lot on Zoom, you kind of live in this little square here, but where are the doors in your room, or where are the windows? How high above you is the ceiling? Kind of notice the space around you. And notice what feelings are in your body. All of those are welcome and fine here. Are you like me? You're a little bit excited and anxious. There's a little bit of snow today, so there was a little bit of childhood excitement slash some fear for my plants that I did not protect. And just kind of come into the space, kind of be aware of where your entire body is and how it's resting and how gravity is playing with it. Now we are going to practice some images because we'll be making images with our body. You at home can feel free to participate at your own kind of comfortable stretch. If it makes more sense to you to write things down or to create this with objects in your living space, feel free. Participate at your own comfortable stretch. I'll be demonstrating with what you can see of my body on kind of the seated position. And you also get to learn a little bit more about me. We're also going to go pretty quickly. If you're like me and you love overthinking things and love over-researching things, this is a good way to kind of do that demechanization and get out of your head. So we'll be creating 2 images just to practice, and whatever your body goes into is correct. So the first one, since today is kind of this sludgy snow, the first image will be snow, and I'm going to count down, and then we're just going to get into that image, and then we'll come out of it. So image of snow in 3, 2, 1, and whatever you did is correct, and you can shake it off. We can let that go. We're just practicing. And let's practice another image that's a little less concrete, that's a little bit more conceptual. So let's do our next image will be an image of resilience. We'll do an image of resilience, creating a statue with our bodies in 3, 2, 1. Oh, and often you'll surprise yourself. I'm not really sure what exactly is going on with my body here, and we're not going to reflect so much on this image of resilience that I created, but we'll be playing with some images and reflecting more on them, kind of getting at that, how do we think about things in new ways? How do we make the strange familiar and the familiar strange? How do we embrace this consciousness raising that we can have when we come together in community? This is often more powerful in community, so I'm really excited to hear what everyone else has also discovered and embodied throughout this. So let's start off with our question. So if this is an advice column, this will be the thing that's blocking you, the thing that is getting in your way, and we'll create an image of that thing. It can be kind of abstract, that's totally fine. The one that I'll be using is my own perfectionism. This has been my own rigidity, and kind of this is also a symptom of white supremacy culture, of kind of my need to be perfect and correct. I talked about over-researching. So without giving myself too much time to think, let's create our image of our thing that is blocking us. I will create an image of perfectionism in 3, 2, 1. Okay. And kind of take a moment to sit and think about what you have made with your body, and come out of it. So let's do a quick reflection on that. We're obviously not going to have as much time as I would love together here, but hopefully this will start rubbing your brain parts together so that you can be thinking of this later. So for instance, I'm noticing that I have my normal anxiety shoulders up, very closed, kind of fearful posture. My hands are you can't really see it, but they're pretty pressed together. There's a lot of control here. So thinking about that as my image of me being blocked, what is the ideal version of that? So this is an exercise called Real Ideal. So thinking about this problem, and then what is our ideal version? This ideal version you can imagine is you from the future, and you have totally figured this out, and you are now writing yourself. This is that advice column. I've sent in this letter. I've said, hey, future Nicole, I am struggling with perfectionism. I know you have this figured out. What is your offer for me? And the message is going to come back, but it's going to come back to me embodied. And so let's see what happens, and then we can interpret what happens there. In all of its fun, risk and awkwardness, which is live theater at its finest. So ideal image, what do you think your future you would bring you as the answer in your body? Ideal image in 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of take note of what's happening for you. I'm noticing for me, like my chest has opened up way more. My shoulders are no longer doing that anxiety thing. I also, you can't really see my hands, but they're like loose and at my sides. I'm noticing that I'm no longer like needing to control things. So, what did you notice about your ideal image that came up for you? What do you think that means? What does that mean for the types of changes that might need to happen? Some of these are things that you can control, and some of these are things that are outside of you that are systemic. So just kind of starting to think about those things. So for example, for mine, I think that there's a lesson here in surrendering for me, like going from this kind of very tight hand posture to letting my hands go. I think that's definitely a 2021 lesson for me, is part of my own growth and resilience might need to be doing a little bit more surrendering and not necessarily needing to be so rigid with things and to embrace uncertainty. So there you are. You learned a little bit about me as well. And you can do all sorts of things with this real ideal image work. You can create performances from it. You can use it to brainstorm for your own poetry, art. I'll often go into free writing after this, or we'll create 6-word stories. You can also play with the images in between. You could say, all right, if going from here to here, what are the steps in between? What does that mean for our community collective action? So it's a great starting point to demechanize and kind of get back into your body, so that we can decolonize our own minds. So I wanted to, that's about the end of the time here. I want to thank Hive Arts Collective so much for having me. This video will also go up on the blog. I want to thank you for being here. Your experience is so vital. That's what makes participatory theater, and it's why I miss all of you so much. I cannot wait till we can do participatory live theater in the ways that we were used to, or perhaps there's, like some of the surrender message, maybe there's new ways I don't even know about. So thank you so much. Feel free to tag me or Hive Arts Collective if you want to share your images, your real and ideal images, or to reflect on what that meant for you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of this kind of slushy day.